What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Hydro Mind Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Russ. Today, we're going to be doing a paddle training masterclass. I'm going to give you everything I know about paddle training, how to do it properly, also what to do pre-surf before you get out in the water, and how to actually paddle once you're in the water. I'm going to be doing rapid fire, deep dive, literally everything I know about paddle training so you can get started today training at the highest level possible. So before we get started here, I just want to give you a little update of where I'm at right now. So I don't know if you know, but where I live on the coast, I also have a job that requires me to travel a lot. So I have two houses. I have a house that's in Alberta, Canada, which is like a few hundred kilometers away from the ocean. And with COVID, I've been traveling back and forth, and I constantly get stuck one way or the other because of flights are all crazy and quarantine and all kinds of messed up stuff. So I brought my family out here. So I'm currently landlocked for the next couple of months. Probably won't get to surf again until August. It is June, which is kind of, on the surface, it's frustrating, but it's actually kind of cool because it's all this it's time away from the ocean that originally got me into training for surfing, and so it's a really good time to put my training to use, which I'm always training. I never stop, but I'm really putting a heavy investment in it right now. So doing the landlocked style. I'm on the content grind, so I'm going to be posting podcasts every week at least. Getting back into YouTube, Instagram's popping right now too, so that's where I'm at. So really looking forward to leveling up all my stuff. So I'm on the paddle training grind as well too. So I just want you to know that. Just like who's that guy? The Hair Club for Men, where he's not just the owner, he's also a client. Literally, I made this training for myself first. That's how it all started. So yeah, I do everything that I preach here. So before we jump into the training, I want to let you know that this podcast and every episode is brought to you by Onnit Supplements, the best damn supplements for surfers on planet Earth. So one of my favorite products is something that's called nitric oxide. It's a pre-workout supplement for performance. The cool thing about this stuff, it's a non-stimulant endurance booster, so it doesn't elevate your heart rate, so it won't negatively affect your ability to hold your breath. So nitric oxide is actually produced by your body. That's why nasal breathing is important, because that's where nitric oxide is released in your nasal cavity. Nitric oxide dilates your blood vessels, meaning it makes it easier for oxygen to get out of your blood into your muscles and your brain and your organs. So that's oxygen delivery. Along the oxygen pathway, if you're missing out on the absorption side of it, you can actually expel oxygen out your mouth instead of absorbing it. So that's a problem. So with the nitric oxide, if you aren't doing breath training, I wouldn't even recommend you use this stuff, because that's the free stuff. You can do that right away. If you do nasal breathing, do low oxygen training, you'll get a way bigger performance boost than any supplement. That's an extra. So if you are doing the breath training, all the stuff that I recommend, adding this can give you a massive boost. It is so legit. I love to do it when I work out, and I love to do it when I surf. I don't do it every time, because it's my opinion that you want to really lean on the things that can't be taken away, like your strength, like your oxygen efficiency. This is just an extra to have once in a while. So if you become dependent on a supplement, which can be taken away, that's not a good thing. So I just recommend using it. So if there's a big swell coming, or if you're really gonna do a hardcore workout and you're kind of feeling tired, it's a good booster. I had one time, I was on vacation with my family and our friends and their family. So it's a whole bunch of little kids. So we had a beach house. We're up late every night. Kids are up early every morning. And one day I was just too exhausted. We were going to the beach and I was not feeling it. And I took a double dose of this stuff, and it was better than coffee. Didn't feel jittery, had energy all day, and just for surfing it's better too. Increases your breath hold time, increases oxygen efficiency, so better for endurance, better for recovery. So this stuff is legit. It tastes like it's a fruit flavored. It honestly, it kind of tastes like a bit like you're taking a supplement, to be honest with you. But it's not bad. It's not bad. I just slam it. So I really recommend you try this. So if you go to onnit.com, use the promo code HydroMind, get 10% off any and all supplements from that store. So that's it for that. We're diving straight into this paddle training masterclass. So in the beginning, we're talking about paddle training. This is what you do when you're at home. This is what you do when you're landlocked. This is what you do when you're trying to level up your surfing. You want to surf longer without getting tired. Paddle training fundamentals, how to do it properly. Because if you train incorrectly, you'll paddle incorrectly, but also you won't use your time as effectively. So you want to get the most done in the shortest amount of time possible, which translates directly into the water. So doing these things correctly will allow you to do that. Starting with number one, when you're doing paddle training, with the paddle bands that we have. So they're anchored up at the top hinge of your door. So you want to be in a position where you're looking up. You've got to keep your head and your chest up. So shoulders back, head and chest up, looking up at where the bands are. So that'll require you to bend your knees a little bit. So it is tempting when you get tired to drop your head and your chest, because it's harder to paddle because you're using a smaller set of muscles in your back. But that's part of the proper paddle technique. As you get exhausted, you'll be tempted to lean forward and just put your head down and like grind out those last reps. Incorrect. You only paddle as long, or you only train as long as you can keep good form. As your head and chest start to drop, stop and rest, because you want to reinforce proper paddling technique. And then when you get on your board, this directly translates because you're building your core muscles, you're building your back muscles. You can always tell when someone's either a beginner surfer or they're tired because their head starts to drop. So doing this in training is critical. And that's number one. That's a huge mistake that I see people make. And when I was first doing paddle training too, even though I knew not to, I would catch myself doing it. Like, especially when I'd make videos of myself, I'm like, wow, I did it again because I was tired. So it takes a lot of conscious thought, but the payoff is huge. So it's super, super important. Number two is how you're breathing when you're paddle training. You want to do nasal breathing only. So like I mentioned with that supplement, nitric oxide, nasal breathing releases nitric oxide, so it increases oxygen delivery in your muscles. If you've never done nasal breathing, it'll feel like you're kind of being suffocated a bit because you're not getting as much oxygen in. But what that's going to do is it's going to lower the levels of oxygen in your body, so it's going to increase your tolerance to low oxygen, but it's going to increase the CO2 in your body. That's going to increase your tolerance to that. So the flip side of that would be a weakness. And having that as a strength, you want to have high tolerances to both those, low oxygen and high CO2. When you have that, you can go longer with holding your breath because high CO2 gives you the urge to breathe. Low oxygen makes you black out. So it increases your breath hold time, decreases the amount of time it takes you to recover. So proper nasal breathing in training is critical. When you first do it, you will probably get a very, very strong urge to breathe through your mouth. I recommend to just stop the workout. If you feel like you can no longer breathe through your nose, stop. And then just stand still, recover, continue to nasal breathe. And then as soon as you feel like you can work out again, go. Don't mouth breathe ever. When I first started doing this, man, it's been years since I learned the nasal breathing thing. I can't remember. But when I did, it was the exact same. I would just feel like I was so tempted to mouth breathe instantly. And now it took only a couple of weeks because your body starts to adapt quickly. Your tolerance to these gases will increase, and it'll switch for you very, very quickly, but only if you stay disciplined on it. So nasal breathing is critical. Belly breathing is just as important. This one's a little bit harder, takes a little bit more training. So you want to make sure you deep belly breaths in and out. A couple reasons. Chest breathing, so if you're properly inflating your diaphragm, it only fills your lungs part way. So you'll be starting at a deficit in training and in surfing. But as well, chest breathing puts tension in your chest, your neck, and your face, which actually, so everything's connected, right? All these muscles, especially in your face, are connected to your nervous system. So that pain face that you make talks to your nervous system and tells your brain that you're in trouble. So it elevates your heart rate and releases adrenaline, burning oxygen faster. So that's a negative in training. It's a huge negative in surfing. So like you want to train like you want to do it in the real world. So you want to make sure you're proper belly breathing. If you're a chest breather, which I was before I learned about proper belly breathing, studies show that it takes 3,500 to 5,000 conscious repetitions to correct it. So the conscious repetitions means you're thinking about it while you're doing, you're intentionally belly breathing. The cool thing about paddle training is if you are doing conscious belly breathing in your paddle training, it takes about 1 week to get in those 3,500 to 5,000 conscious reps. So you can switch your subconscious to be doing belly breathing in 1 week with good training. So, and that's the hardest one because it does take a lot of reps to correct it and to make it a subconscious reflex. So eventually it'll come to the point where you do it without thinking about it, and that's where you gotta be. So nasal breathing and belly breathing, so critical. The next one in paddle training is you wanna keep a straight spine. So you don't wanna twist, you don't wanna rock your shoulders back and forth like this, because that uses so much more muscle. I call that the power stroke, and that's only to be used at the 3 to 5 strokes before you get into a wave, but we'll talk about that in a minute. The way you want to train is you want to keep your spine straight, eyes looking forward, head not twisting, and you're only using your back and your tricep like this. So it's like you just got these little flippers and your core is rigid and straight. The reason for that is you're using as little muscle as possible. And again, you have to make this a subconscious reflex. When you do proper paddling technique in your training, you won't have to think about it when you're doing it out in the water. So I like to compare it to brushing your teeth. You can imagine, so if I told you tomorrow morning to brush your teeth with the opposite hand, there's a 99% chance you would just forget to do it because it's so ingrained in you. But if you set a reminder and you did try to brush your teeth with the wrong hand, it would take so much more mental energy. It would feel super awkward, right? because all your that movement pattern with the other hand is ingrained in you. You can do it without thinking about it. When paddling becomes so ingrained in the proper technique that you can do it without thinking about it, it doesn't take that mental energy. Thinking takes about 20% of your oxygen. So if you can paddle without thinking about it, it actually conserves oxygen. So it allows more oxygen to be delivered to your muscles, which is super, super fascinating. It takes less energy to paddle when it's a subconscious reflex, when it's an ingrained movement pattern. Connecting those neurons to your muscles, making it an ingrained path, it just gets deeper and deeper the more that you do it. So the more you paddle train, the less energy it takes you to paddle in the water. Super, super important to keep that straight spine. Also, the resistance that you use. You want to make sure that you're doing the endurance rep range. 25 reps plus per arm. So a minimum of 25. So per arm, that would be 50 per workout because you're doing each side. More is better. So we've manufactured these paddle bands to simulate the resistance of the water plus a few extra pounds, because it's still in that endurance rep range, but you're getting more done in a short amount of time. So if you use too little of a resistance, we've tested everything from just a couple of pounds up to 50 and a little bit beyond. And we found this is the Goldilocks zone, which is 15 to 20 pounds. Because if you use too little, it's too light and you just don't get enough done. It's just a waste of your time. It takes way too long to get a workout in. If you use too little, it's not within that endurance rep range. You're getting burnt out in 10 to 12 reps. That's more of a bodybuilding rep range. So you're building mass rather than lean endurance muscles. 25 reps plus, so important. But if you're using the right resistance, you can do like 100 reps per arm and you'll be so burnt. But it's like I said, it's in that endurance rep range because it's above 25. So the cool thing about using a resistance that's a little bit heavier than the resistance of the water is you can imagine the workout you would get in, say, a 2 to 3 hour workout or a surf session. You can condense that down to 20 to 30 minutes by picking the right resistance, which is so valuable. 20 minutes a day, you can get a full paddle workout that simulates a full paddle or a surf session, which is like, it's the best use of your time. The next thing is breath holding. So we do low oxygen training. So it's holding your breath on an exhale. The thing about paddling and surfing is an endurance sport. You spend 90% of your time paddling sometimes. Hopefully less because you spend more time on waves, or sitting and waiting for waves. But you spend a lot of time paddling, especially as the bigger it gets. So it's an endurance sport where you're also forced to hold your breath over and over. There's other sports where you do also hold your breath, like swimming, but you're never forced to hold your breath because you don't get to decide when you hold your breath, how long you hold your breath, how often you hold your breath. The ocean decides that. So when you're constantly duck diving, you're caught inside, you're wiping out, all those different things. You're gonna be forced to hold your breath on with high heart rate, high levels of adrenaline, and then you're still required to paddle and get out of these situations and keep paddling while you have low levels of oxygen and super high levels of CO2. So we simulate that in our training. It's super simple, but super powerful. It's to exhale, blow out all your oxygen, hold your breath at the bottom so your lungs are empty, and begin to paddle train. Do your paddle training until you get a medium to strong urge to breathe, and then keep paddling, but then start breathing. Nasal breathing only. So you're recovering from that deficit while you're still paddling, exactly like you would be forced to do out in the ocean. And what this does is it builds ultra fast oxygen efficiency because it stresses your cardio system. So if you do long form cardio, like marathons, like I said in the last podcast, it takes you 2 to 3 hours to get to that state where your cardio system is really burnt. You can burn your cardio system in the beginning and start to recover from it through the whole workout. It's really stressing or making your heart, your lungs, your diaphragm so much stronger, so much quicker, and making you ultra efficient with that oxygen. And then when you go back to nasal breathing to recover, it's all compounds and it becomes so powerful. So low oxygen training combined with it is essential because if you didn't do it and then all of a sudden you go surfing and you're now forced to hold your breath over and over, you're going to be at a deficit. So you're not going to know what to do. So it's important to simulate it correctly. And the very final thing that really helps with paddle training is posture correction. So the modern world is really messing up people's posture. You can think about everyone's always sitting on their phones, driving, whatever it may be. Everyone's getting crunched forward. So it's like forward head, forward shoulder. And I started getting this really bad too. And I didn't know that I had it until I would see like a candid photo of myself. So like it happened a couple times when I was skateboarding and I was getting someone to take a picture of me skateboarding or a video. And I looked at myself, I'm like, holy, my head and shoulders are messed. So I started working on this a lot myself too, and it's had massive benefits. So the easiest way to do this is before your paddle training. So the idea of correcting posture, especially that forward stuff, which most people have, is to stretch the front, strengthen the back. So that'll like stretch the chest, strengthen the back. So this paddle training strengthens the back. So before you do a little paddle training, you want to stretch the front, stretch the chest. The easiest way to do this is you can either take the bands and turn away from them and just like push yourself away so it stretches out your chest. Alternatively, you can, if you're just up against the wall, you can put your arm and like in an L shape facing up against the wall and then turn away from it. Do each side. Just open up your chest. Do that over and over. It's posture correction is not a quick fix, but doing this before every paddle workout is going to stretch the front and strengthen the back. So over time, you're going to start to correct your posture. It's going to allow you to keep your head and your chest up better when you're paddling. So it'll take you less energy to hold that great posture. It'll also help you breathe better too, having your chest open and your shoulders back allows you to get more oxygen in, improving breathing. Posture correction is critical for paddle training. So moving on from that, so all that stuff, it's a lot, right? All those things I just mentioned. But when you do it properly and you just focus on the little things, it becomes so easy. It just becomes natural. And that's the goal of it all. We want to get to the stage where you're not thinking about all these things. You're doing the optimal thing because it's who you are, not something that you're struggling to do, right? So repetition is important. And fortunately, paddle training is super repetitive. So you start to ingrain these things as habit really, really quickly, which is cool. So moving on, this is a really, really cool one. Something that a lot of people don't know is what you should do pre-surf. I never used to warm up especially when I was younger, for any sport, surfing, otherwise it didn't matter. I didn't think I needed to warm up because I never got injured at the time. But I always see these people that I go surf with, like their warm up is just like they just do a couple torso twists, couple arm circles, they're ready to go. The one thing, so there's lots of different ways you can warm up, and in my Waterman Elite program, I show you a bunch of different flows and a bunch of stretches and stuff that are great for that. But at a minimum, there's something I like to share, and it's to stretch your shoulders and your chest. So when you're paddling, you're already fighting the resistance of the water. You're fighting the resistance of gravity, keep your head and chest up. You don't want to also fight the resistance of tight muscles. So a really, really cool stretch is to use your leash on your surfboard to stretch your chest and your shoulders. So what I do right before I get in the water, you want to do it on the beach. You hold your leash, so you hold the cuff against one hand so it doesn't slip. You hold the leash so it's like a little past shoulder width apart and wrap it around your hand so it doesn't slip, because if it's wet, it'll slip. And then you just push it back as far as you can. The closer your hands are together, the harder it'll be. The farther apart they are, the easier it'll be. So start far apart, and it really, really opens up your shoulders. Do that right before you paddle out. If you have a short board, you got a shorter leash, you'll probably have to get on your knees to do it, but like that, it's not a big deal. And do that right before you paddle out. It'll open up your shoulders, open up your chest. It'll have less resistance for you to paddle and keep your head and chest up. Tiny little tweak has a massive benefits. The other one, this one's super cool. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say advanced, but to actually feel it, you got to kind of really have an awareness of your body. And it's something that I call a spleen dump. So one thing that people don't know is that your spleen carries a surplus of red blood cells that are oxygen rich that it can release to keep you safe. And so when you hold your breath multiple times, it dumps that into your bloodstream to help deliver more oxygen. There's an indigenous tribe. They're somewhere in Indonesia. I forget what they're called, but they kind of really came into the mainstream during one of those Planet Earth documentaries. You may have seen it, and they were showing these free divers that were going to the bottom of the ocean and literally walking on the bottom of the ocean for like minutes at a time. And those guys, something super cool is their spleens are something like 50% larger than the average human. And that's really it's an adaptation they've made from holding their breath over and over, because they have those massive stores of red blood cells that get released when they hold their breath. So if you've ever done any breath hold training for an extended amount of time, especially when you're trying to do a max breath hold, you'll get to the point where it's weird. You start to hold your breath, you get in these urges to breathe, start really uncomfortable, and then somewhere around like 3/4 of your max breath hold, you'll get this like sense of release and like euphoria. And that's your spleen releasing all these red blood cells. It's such a strange feeling, especially when you know that it's coming. It's really, really cool. But you can trigger that before you paddle out. So what I like to do is a little bit of a breath warm up. So after I do the leash stretches on land, I do it when I'm on my knees or sitting on my butt. All you got to do is exhale all your oxygen and hold it. Sometimes you can do like little arm raises to burn it quickly, but all you need to do is sit there until you get a strong to medium urge to breathe. Then you inhale and then do it again. Do 3 in a row. 3 exhaled breath holds in a row to a medium. This isn't meant to push your limits to the max, but you'll get that sense of euphoria. You get that your body, it gives you this like livening, like fires up your nervous system and gets you ready to go. But because it's not a full breath hold, it's not like it doesn't elevate your heart rates a whole ton. It doesn't release like adrenaline, like you're in danger kind of a breath hold. It just releases that more red blood cells and gets your nervous system fired up. It makes you alive and awake and ready to paddle out. It makes a massive difference, especially if you don't do any kind of breath warm up and you do it for the first time. You will really notice a massive difference in your mental awareness, but also just like your physical. Like it gives you a jolt, like a nice jolt. It's really, really cool. So I recommend you try that, especially on big days. Every little bit helps. So moving on, what do you do? How do you paddle when you're in the water? So actual paddling technique while you're in the water is so, so important. The very first thing, the most valuable thing I can teach you that you can do right away is something that I call weak side breathing. So it's how you breathe when you paddle. Weak side means what's your weak arm? I'm right-handed, so my left side is my weak arm. So if you think about where your power is, if you were to throw a ball, you exhale when you throw, right? If you were to inhale during a throw, it would feel super awkward and you wouldn't have the power. So I just recommend, it's just like a little tip. It probably doesn't have a massive effect, but it matters a bit. So because you have your weak hand, you give it the power breath. So it strengthens it a bit. So your exhale goes on your weak hand. So you exhale on your weak hand, inhale on your dominant hand. So that's how you paddle. And that will set your tempo, which matters a ton. So tempo matters because you'll have the right paddle tempo, but it'll also, at that weak side breathing, will give you a little bit of extra boost. This goes into the next side, which is breathing gears. So these are like the different stages of breathing you have. The ultimate one is full nasal breathing. It's hard to maintain that in surfing because you're holding your breath over and over, but doing it as much as possible is good. A big problem a lot of people have when nasal breathing while paddling, because you're always duck diving, is getting water up your nose. Super common. A good way to remedy this is slowing down your paddle tempo. So you're not taking forceful, big sharp breaths in, because that'll just send water up your nose. So instead of having a big inhale, like a big spike like this, you want to draw it out. So it's like, so you're still filling your lungs completely, but it's drawn out over a longer breath. And this will actually be better for your paddling tempo too. Nasal breathing as much as possible. But as you're duck diving, as you're getting more exhausted from paddling, your CO2 is going to start accumulating higher and higher in your bloodstream. So you're going to be wanting to expel it. So that goes to paddling gear number 2, which is nasal in, mouth out. So you're expelling more, but you're still breathing in through your nose. So you're getting that nitric oxide, but you're expelling more CO2, which is good. So that's more of like your power gear that'll help get you past the break for those last pushes. Likely this is where you'll be the most if you're doing the training. So nasal gear 1 as much as possible, but gear 2 is probably where you'll live if you're training. But if you're not doing any training and you're new to this, gear number 3, I call it the danger zone, because if your mouth breathing in with your mouth, out with your mouth, you're pretty exhausted. That can increase adrenaline, and you need to find a place to rest. If you're hardcore mouth breathing, I bet your posture is going down. You're probably not belly breathing. You're gasping for air. It's called overbreathing or lung flushing, because you're breathing out too much CO2. You want to have a bit of CO2 in your blood, because that actually helps dilate blood vessels as well too. That's why it's important to increase your tolerance to CO2, but that's a whole nother topic. So breathing gears are important, and the only way to really get to those so you can live in gears number 1 and 2 is through training, which is the stuff that I told you, the good nasal breathing, the low oxygen stuff, the belly breathing, the head and the chest up. All that stuff's going to allow you to live in gear 1 and gear 2, and that way you're not in gear 3 as much. Now gear 3 is, so if you're a good nasal breather, actually opening your mouth and breathing for a couple breaths is good, because it's like a blower, right, on a car, and it just like allows you to get tons of oxygen at once without over breathing. So your power strokes, the couple strokes before you get into a wave, it's good to use then. But if you're just traveling around trying to get past the break or navigating the lineup and you're mouth breathing, you're in trouble. So, but training is the solution to that. So after the breathing gears, so it's the actual travel stroke. So like we were practicing in training, keeping your spine straight and using as little muscle as possible. That's what I call the travel stroke, because that's when you're traveling around the water. So it's, again, spine straight, head and chest up, and you're not twisting and bending your spine, and you're not rocking your shoulders. Because all these muscles in your core and your back, those are giant muscles. And if you're using those, it's because you have weaknesses in your back and your arms and your paddle muscles, right? So if you have strength there, you can just use this, and you want to use as little energy as possible. So you don't want to be flexing every single muscle in your body, trying to power and get through that. You want to be loose and relaxed. And honestly, the power will be right here, like right behind your armpits, and then the cups of your hands. You just want to hold those tight, so those firm. The rest of your muscles should be limp, or like as limp as possible. So that way it's just, you're just like gliding through the water, just floating, using as little energy as possible. If you have weaknesses in those arms, because they're smaller muscles, you'll start to compensate with your twisting. But those muscles are bigger, they take so much more oxygen that all of your muscles start to tumble like dominoes. So if you're twisting and using your compensation muscles, you're in trouble. But again, training is the solution to that. Now that twisting, I call that the power stroke. So it's like the 3 to 5 strokes you use right before you get into a wave. So if you've ever seen any of the videos I posted of me paddling, even if I'm turning to get to a wave, I'm still just like, I'm paddling, hardly even moving, like barely using any muscle at all. And then like just as the wave like gets to my feet, just like my head drops, boom, 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 I start twisting and paddling fast. So it's like you should never sprint until you know you're about to get a wave, because it's that explosion costs a lot of oxygen. So you don't want to do it at any time other than you're getting into a good fast set wave. So I used to train and get people to train both strokes, the travel stroke and the power stroke, but it just became too complicated. So I eliminated the power stroke in training, and I found no negative effect. So just training the travel stroke doesn't affect the power stroke as long as you have like a good like total body functional exercise. So yeah, so I don't recommend training the power stroke anymore. I just found it to be unnecessary, and once I eliminated it, I didn't find any negative effects. So that's the way to recommend those. But just as far as paddling technique, when to use the travel stroke is 99 to 90% of the time, and the power stroke is the 3 to 5 strokes right before you get into a wave, and never any other time. The very last one is tying it all together, and this is paddling rhythm. Rhythm's a little bit harder to describe, but I kind of have a good analogy. So if you've ever been running or jogging, if you've never done it or you haven't done it for a long time, the very first run that you go on, you will be in pain. You will feel every single step that you take, and you will be so locked inside your body, you will know everything that's going on with your body. Your lungs will burn, you'll feel all the pain. But as you do it more, your feet get stronger, your legs get stronger, your cardio system gets stronger, and you can start to run, and you get into like a meditative state where you can travel long distances and not even know it, and all of a sudden you'll snap. You'll come to and you'll be like, wow, how did I get here? I wasn't even thinking about running. That's rhythm. So the key points there is you have to have the muscles and the cardio system back you up so you're not in pain while you're doing it, because you'll never get outside of your head if you're in pain. But also, a really cool point that one of my members, Robbie, brought up. He's from Nashville. He's one of our Waterman Elite members, and he teaches people to play guitar. And he was telling me that rhythm is one of those things that you can't really teach or explain to someone. They just have to put the reps in playing guitar, and then all of a sudden at some point down the road they just get it, right? Paddling rhythm's kind of the same. But that's the cool thing about paddle training, because you're getting these thousands of reps in at home, and it's starting to become an ingrained movement pattern and becomes habit. It becomes, your rhythm will start to come. So it's a combination of having the muscles and the cardio system to back you up so you're not in pain, the conscious repetitions over and over, and the weak side breathing, inhale, exhale, because that's setting that tempo, right? And the cool thing about that is you will start to build your rhythm. So you'll be paddling and you won't even know it. You'll get into that meditative state, especially getting up past the break. You'll also be duck diving, but we're doing the low oxygen training. So it'll feel normal. So it'll be like paddle, paddle, boom, breath hold, paddle, paddle, breath hold, just like we're training. And once you get that rhythm, once you stack all these things that I mentioned and you get your paddle rhythm, that's when you're an elite paddler. Get up past the break easy. You can recover fast. You can turn and go right away. You can navigate the lineup side to side. So instead of waiting for a wave to come to you, you can hunt down the peaks, and you'll be doing it without even knowing it. You won't be in pain. You'll feel powerful out there. You'll recover quickly. And that is when surfing changes. This is honestly, you can tell probably by listening to this that I've gone so deep on paddle training. I've thought about it for literally a decade. Everything I've learned, I've added to it, tweaked it, taken things away, had feedback from thousands of surfers. This is the ultimate X factor game changer when it comes to surfing performance. If you want high level surfing, this is it. And the cool thing about this is you can still keep your career. You don't have to get a van and live down by the river. You don't have to quit your job or leave your family. You don't have to surf every single day. You can be a weekend warrior. You can be landlocked. You can have a busy career and still have high level surfing at any age. I got tons of people in our group that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s getting surfing back. So if you're a beginner surfer and you're struggling to make any progress right now, or not making any progress at all, boom, Getting past these fitness barriers of paddle training will accelerate your progress. It'll cut off years of your learning curve. If you're an experienced surfer and you find your fitness is on the decline, we see these people have insane results because just getting past these couple fitness barriers gives you surfing back. You know, they say youth is wasted on the young, but now you can have all that knowledge, all that ocean experience, and still have the youthful fitness, right? So you can have it all. So we found that these people, they get insane results really, really quickly, but also having that, you'll have a new gratitude for it, right? You'll be the happiest surfer out there. You'll appreciate it more because having lost it and getting back is a really, really amazing feeling. So I feel like if I died today, this would be my greatest contribution to the surfing world, is allowing anybody to enjoy surfing at the highest level possible, to catch amazing set waves on the best days, even if they haven't surfed in a couple of months. And that's something that wasn't available to the surfing world ever in the history of surfing. So I feel really proud to be able to offer this to people. And like myself right now, being landlocked in this time, I know that when I get back there and when those waves start coming, I'm going to be on as many as possible. And I've proven this over and over in my own life. I've proven this in lots of people's lives. So that's what I offer you. So if you really like all this stuff and you feel kind of overwhelmed, it's like a lot of things, I would love to help you. So we have the Waterman Elite program. But before we put you in there, all I want you to do, if you are interested in this training and you want to get involved with us, you want to join our group, you want to get the paddle bands, you want the regimented training system, all this stuff, go to my Instagram, direct message me the word Waterman. I'll know that you're interested. We'll start to have a short conversation on there. We can find out what your goals are, what your struggles are, and we'll figure out what the best path is for you, which program to get you to the highest level possible in the shortest amount of time possible. And then if it feels like you're a good fit, we can schedule a free coaching call with me. So we'll get on the phone and we'll go through everything that you need, where you're at, the path that will be best for you to get you on there. And then if we both feel like you're a good fit, we'll get you into our Waterman Elite program so you can join our group and you come with us. We are a group of like-minded surfers all heading in the same direction. You know what they say, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go alone, and better together. So our group, something I'm super proud of. It's honestly, it's the best thing I've built in my life, other than my family. But I feel like this Waterman Elite group has become like family too. It's a super tight knit group of guys and gals. Everyone headed in the same direction. Everyone having big results. And if you really want to work closely with me, that's the place where I hang out every single day. A lot of one-on-one with everyone who's in there. So if you want to get involved with that, go to my Instagram, direct message me the word Waterman. We'll begin the process of giving you all the free resources and coaching from me, and see if you're a good fit for the Waterman Elite program, and we get you in there and get you going and get you surfing at the highest level possible. So I hope you enjoyed this stuff. That is the best stuff I know when it comes to paddle training. I really, really hope you got a ton of value, and I hope it inspires you to kind of stretch your goals. If you were thinking your best surfing was behind you, I'd like to tell you that your best waves are coming. So yeah, I look forward to talking to you soon. Again, this is the Hydro Mind Podcast. My name is Kyle Russ. Thanks a ton for listening. I'll talk to you next week.